And thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 5 tonight. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
It's good to have you here. I'm Whitney Ward.
All right, let's start with the forecast where the rain continued into today, really starting to miss that sunshine.
I see a peek of it there right now, and I think it's fantastic.
Goodness.
The clouds have parted. Let's head right over to Chief Meteorologist Tom Sherry to see if there's more sun on the way.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. Look at this. You can see we've got that flood advisory in effect until noon tomorrow. That includes most of North Idaho, and especially the Coeur d'Alene River at Cataldo could experience some flooding. Right now, we think it's just going to be in the agricultural areas, but we're going to keep an eye on that. We're at 43 degrees. Wind is out of the southwest at 13 miles per hour. When we take a look at your satellite and radar picture, we've got showers to the east of us and to the north of us. A closer view shows most of the rain has left the Spokane area, but we're seeing some heavier rain to the north, and we're finally seeing some snow now beginning to fall up in the higher elevations as well. We'll look for a colder overnight low of 33. I've got 48 for the high on Friday with mostly dry conditions, and we should get a little bit of sunshine at times. I'm tracking even more sunshine over the weekend, almost 50 Saturday and Sunday, but those overnight lows drop down below freezing, and that's what we need to see happen to help stabilize that snowpack. I'm going to check your 7-day forecast coming up in a few minutes.
All right, Tom, thank you very much. We are learning more tonight about the firing of a Spokane County Sheriff's deputy who's running for sheriff himself. KREM 2 has received several recordings and hundreds of pages of documents from the internal affairs investigation into Craig Chamberlin.
Our very own Ian Smay has been going through those documents along with the rest of our investigative team. He joins us live in the studio tonight with more on the documents. Ian?
Craig Chamberlin claimed he was fired for political reasons as he is running to be the next sheriff against a candidate endorsed by Sheriff Ozzie Knezevich. But according to the documents we have obtained, he was fired for a number of reasons, including for lying during an internal affairs investigation. According to the documents, Chamberlin wrote a character letter for his daughter's volleyball coach as part of a federal child pornography case. He told internal affairs investigators that he only knew the letter was for legal issues and that he didn't know it would be submitted to a judge. However, a copy of the letter Chamberlin wrote seems to dispute that. Part of that letter included a section where Chamberlin referenced his law enforcement career. He also said in the letter that he was shocked to hear the allegations against the coach, which goes against his statements to investigators in which he said he didn't know what the coach was accused of. Knezevich is heard in a recording during a February 17th meeting with Chamberlin, saying that the inconsistencies in his story were a problem.
It really didn't help your case that much because we found more inconsistencies, a lot of consistencies, and even more disturbingly, we actually had witnesses changing their stories on us.
My fault and bad wording on my letter that I wrote to him, and I'll be the first one to fully admit that. And I wrote it based on, like we spoke about before, the rumors and the speculations from the parents, and I should not have done that.
Another part of the documents we received contains an administrative report from a sheriff's office detective. He reported that Chamberlin told him and an inspector that he would be writing a reference letter for his daughter's volleyball coach for an upcoming sentencing hearing. That goes against Chamberlin telling investigators he didn't know the letter was going to be given to a judge. That detective also raised concerns that the inspector would look into that letter because he was running against Chamberlin for the sheriff position. In the studio, Ian Smay, KREM 2 News.
Ian, thank you very much. In other news this evening, the East Central neighborhood in Spokane could see more changes along the I-90 corridor. This week, the legislature passed Senate Bill 5853, which would allow the Department of Transportation to lease state property near Interstate 90 and the North Spokane corridor back to the community. So back in the 1950s, I-90 bisected the East Central neighborhood and then split it again in 2010. Hundreds of people sold their homes. Senator Andy Billig is the bill's sponsor and says leasing the surplus land is one way to reconnect the neighborhood.
But it has experienced harm as a result of the placement and construction of these freeways. And so this is a way to mitigate some of that harm. And really, it's going to be community driven, because what I hear from the community is that they're proud of this neighborhood, but they also want control of their future, and they want to add housing. They want to add parks.
The bill was passed this week and is now waiting for Governor Jay Inslee's signature to become law. Community members will have the final say about what to do with the land. According to the bill, whoever leases the land will pay less than the economic rent, but the exact cost is still undetermined. So coming up at 6 tonight, you'll hear from one resident who sold his house back in 2010 and what he thinks about this bill.
2 new COVID testing sites are coming to our area, one in Cheney, the other in Spokane's Hilliard neighborhood. Curative is setting up that COVID PCR testing site at Cheney Middle School. That one will be open Mondays and Wednesdays from 4 to 7 in the evening.
Curative also setting up a COVID PCR testing site at the Spokane Public Library in the Hilliard neighborhood. That one will be open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 in the morning until 5 in the evening. It'll also be open on Sundays from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. Curative's COVID testing is at no out-of-pocket cost to patients. Walk-up testing is available or appointments can be made ahead of time at curative.com. Well, a local partnership is working to collect necessities for people in the community who are in need.
Tomorrow from 4 to 6, you can visit No Lie Brewery in Spokane to donate items and meet some of the Zags before they head off to Vegas. The brewery and the Bulldogs are teaming up with the founder of the Spokane Quarantine for this event. They are requesting new socks, toiletries, backpacks, and non-perishable food items.
Players like Chet Holmgren, Andrew Nemhard, Drew Timme, and a handful of others will also be there. No Lie will also be offering a complimentary pay-it-forward pint glass to the first 500 people who stop by and donate.
In Idaho, 2 bills related to voter laws passed through the House State Affairs Committee. Now, one of the bills would ban ballot drop boxes in Idaho elections. A county clerk told the committee it gives voters a way to safely drop off their ballots without having to drive all the way to the clerk's office, which for some can be an hours-long drive.
If it's not broke, why are we trying to fix it? As far as I know, there have been no issues with ballot box stuffing, or I guess that's the issue that we're worried about, or the safety of the ballots.
Every clerk in my district is opposed to this bill. We have people that drive quite a ways. I've used these drop boxes. They're secure.
The Heritage Foundation says significant voter fraud hasn't been found in Idaho since at least 2017.
So the committee also passed a bill that would change the way people prove their identification. This would make it so that if you cannot show proof of identification, you can no longer sign your ballot. It would also require voters to present documents at polling booths to prove residency and citizenship in order to vote.
While I believe this legislation has positive intention of continuing to keep Idaho elections safe and secure, it contains some flaws which lend themselves more to the disruption of the election process than to the securing of it.
So if both of these bills do pass through the legislature and Governor Little then signs them, they would go into effect right away. Both of the bills have emergency clauses written into them. Another bill introduced this year would also eliminate Idahoans' ability to register to vote on Election Day at the polls. Opponents of these bills say they make it harder for those who lack transportation to vote in elections. Well, we are now in our second week of war in Ukraine. While Ukrainians have fought fiercely, Russian forces have captured their first major city. Russian forces are trying to cut Ukraine off from its seaports. They've surrounded the city of Mariupol and have taken the Black Sea port of Kherson. Meanwhile, heavy strikes continue to target just outside the capital of Kyiv.
The use of weapons with wide area effects in populated urban areas risk being inherently indiscriminate.
The United Nations Human Rights Council says more than 1 million people have already fled Ukraine just in the week since this invasion began, and 1 million more are displaced internally after a second round of peace talks between Russian and Ukrainian negotiators in Belarus. Both sides say they have reached an agreement to at least create safe civilian evacuation corridors.
All right, still ahead tonight, we are continuing our celebrations of Tom Sherry. After the break, we take a look at Tom's tailgating memories. Stay with us. We're back after a quick break.